America is an amazing country filled with wonderful people who do incredible things. But too often, the media and liberal politicians ignore big parts of our nation and the people who make it work. So I'm speaking with leaders and policymakers who deal with real problems every day. I'm Ronna McDaniel, and this is Real America. Today I'm speaking with freshman Congresswoman Nancy Mace from South Carolina, the first woman to ever graduate from the Citadel and now one of the trailblazers in Congress. Nancy, welcome to Real America. Congresswoman Mace from South Carolina, one of our freshman rock star new congresswomen. I know you're not a very shy person.
You're very generous.
You've already made an impression. And I just loved you the minute I met you. We just hit it off.
Thank you.
I am so excited to have you on my podcast. And I am so excited that you're wearing a Free Britney t-shirt. Tell me about that. What's going on today that you're wearing a Free Britney t-shirt?
Well, today I filed a bill to free Britney. She gave some really courageous testimony last month about her abusive conservatorship, and myself, along with someone across the aisle, we are working together to do a bill that would improve upon the abuses in conservatorships. I mean, this is an issue where the right and the left can come together. It's not a right or left issue. It's right versus wrong. And we want to right the abuses that she's detailed. And there are over 1 million people in conservatorships around the country. And abuse has been happening long before she ever topped the charts. And so this is a way for us to work together in a very divisive environment up here. There are places where we can reach across the aisle, like Reagan taught us to, and work together. That's what we're doing, what I'm doing with this bill.
Oh, that is so great. And of course, we've all listened to Britney Spears and watched this. And I do think there is a little bit of, would this be happening to a male artist in the same situation? So,
and the other thing is, if it can happen to her, it can happen to anyone.
Yeah.
And you know, you shouldn't have a conservator or a guardian who has financial ties or conflicts of interest. This is a woman who's been working every year for the last 13 years since she's been in conservatorship. And she doesn't even have control over her own body. She's been forced to put an IUD in her body. I mean, that's just something you do in communist China. It's not something you do here in the United States.
Well, good for you. I love it. I love the Free Britney. I want to give a little intro to you because a lot of people aren't going to know you around the country, right? And you have such an interesting backstory. So let's start. You are the first female graduate from the Citadel.
Right, the Military College of South Carolina. And I started there 25 years ago, believe it or not. I can't believe it.
No,
it's been a long time.
You look so good. You're so young.
my mom, she aged well. So gave us some good
how
genes.
How did you go, okay, I'm going to go to the Citadel?
Well, my story starts before that. I'm a high school dropout.
Okay.
I dropped out of school when I was 17. I was raped when I was 16.
Oh my goodness.
And I couldn't go back to school. I refused to go back to school. And it was a very tough time. And my dad was in the military, in the Army for 28 years. My mom was a school teacher. And despite what I was going through, the trauma I was going through, you know, they said to me a few months into it, and they said, if you're going to stop going to school, you've got to start going to work. And I was a waitress at a Waffle House on the side of the interstate. And at that time I was 17. I used to stand on a piece of duct tape with the bonnet and the uniform, you know, yelling out my customers' hash brown orders to the cooks in the back. And that's how it all started. And then that was in 95, I was 17, and in 96, a year later, the Citadel decided to let women in. And I had taken some college classes along the way, and now it's dual enrollment. But back in the 90s, you barely had internet, let alone dual enrollment. And so I was able to get my high school diploma taking college classes when I was waiting tables. And when the Citadel decided to let women in, I raised my hand, and I decided, I mean, Republican women have been breaking glass ceilings their entire life. This is not a monopoly owned by Democrat women. We don't get a lot of recognition for the barriers that we've broken, but we've been doing it our entire lives. And I didn't go there to be the first. I went there to follow my father's footsteps, and I wanted to prove to him and prove to my mom and my dad that I could go to a place and be challenged, that I could face adversity, that I could face an obstacle, unlike anything I'd faced in my life, and I wouldn't give up. I wouldn't quit.
Democrats always claim the mantle of being the party for women. And you look at you, this freshman class, you being the first graduate from the Citadel. I just saw a Democrat congresswoman put out, I'm the only single mom in Congress. That's
no,
not
you're
true. You are a single
Actually.
mom. But women in our party are not celebrated.
Right.
By the mainstream media. If we are the first, if we're breaking glass ceilings or doing things that are outside the norm, it's muted because
Right.
we're Republican, which
Right.
is shameful. And I think it's so important and valuable to hear your story, being a woman who has survived horrible violence, dropped out of high school, lifted herself up, went to the Citadel, put yourself through
Changed my life. The Citadel
a
literally
ton.
changed
I mean, it
my
had to have
life.
changed your life.
Like, I
and
didn't-
then to have that, adversity coming your way. So you leave the Citadel, and then where do you end up?
Well, I went into corporate America for a couple of years and I had my kids and I knew I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but I also knew as a mom that if you stayed at home that you'd be penalized when it was time to go back to work. And so I started my own company in 2008 when I had a toddler and I
Okay.
was pregnant with my,
Oh my
second
goodness.
kid.
I don't know how you did that.
But it gave me the opportunity to do both where I could work from home and I actually had an office and an open area, an open room where I had my desk. And then I had a play table with toys and clay and puzzles and anything that my toddler wanted to do, I could work and also take care of my kids. And it was really eye-opening experience for me. And we don't get the kind of coverage. The mainstream media wants to talk about equal opportunity, but there is no equal opportunity when you're a conservative woman or a Republican woman on your achievements. It's not the same. And we work just as hard. We break just as many glass ceilings.
And our voice is just as valuable. And
Yeah.
I think what I love what you're saying for women who are thinking about running for office is you were a mom and you made it work in the corporate world. I know when I worked on my first campaign a long time ago, I had toddlers and I made our campaign headquarters a place where the kids could make signs. And it was a place that was safe for moms to come and work. But we need to show our voices are so necessary in this public discussion. And Republican moms and conservative moms, our voices are so necessary. Even if the media doesn't want to share our voices, we need you to come run.
Right.
And I think you're such a great example
and even
for
like
that.
my mom, even like she'll say to me, "Why did you do this network or that network that's very left leaning?" I'm like, "Well, Mom, somebody needs to hear the message.
Yeah.
It's a strong and powerful message." And like you, when I ran my campaign for Congress until we were in the general election, we operated out of my house where moms could come, they could bring their kids until COVID happened. I mean, we were able to. The home was the office, and my kids came and went, and so did other people's as we were campaigning.
How did you run for Congress? What made you decide to do that? What was the
My kids,
catalyst?
actually.
Okay.
So I was a state lawmaker for 3 years prior to coming and running for Congress. And in 2018, this was a seat that Republicans had held for a very long time, but it's a swing district, and a Democrat won in 2018. And I knew why. I know the district, I know the issues were a little bit different. We've never been a 60-40 kind of Republican spot.
Okay.
We've always had an independent streak, the coast of South Carolina and Charleston. We've always marched the beat of our own drum, and I knew why. And I had just had my reelection as a state lawmaker. It was one of my kids. We were looking at the returns. I wanted to see what margin I'd won by.
Okay.
And it was one of my children that said, "Hey, Mommy, when are we going to take out this guy that just won?" And I said, "Well, let me give it a few months. Let me see how I continue to do as a state lawmaker. If I'm effective, if I'm good at the job and I enjoy it, continue to enjoy it, then we can look at running for this seat." And then the next year we jumped in and haven't looked back since. And there are two things I care about. I'm a single mom. I've got 2 kids.
Yeah.
One's going into high school. Can't believe it. And then one's in middle school. But I care about my kids. And I care about my country. And I often tell people I'm married to the job. I've been doing it 7 months. I love it. It's tough work, but I was built for tough. And this is a time where we've got to be tough.
I love that you are doing this for your kids, and we'll talk about that a little bit more because you and I have really bonded over the virtual school and what we've dealt with our kids home. And I have a high schooler and I have a child about to go to college. But what has it been like being with this freshman class? I do think there's so much energy with this 15 new members that have come in, all women, minorities, or veterans that won in 2022 or 2020, put us on the precipice.
We're going to win again in 2022.
Precipice of winning back the House in 2022. But how has it been? Tell me what it's like being a freshman member of Congress.
It's been crazy. But
what's been the biggest shock?
We have a great freshman class.
Okay.
The diversity of faces, the diversity of ideas, and the work ethic with this freshman class is tremendous. And they're all doing their part right now.
And you all get along. I've seen you guys going out and about. We just had a panel with 7 of you at an RNC meeting. You do seem to all really vibe well together and work well together.
And especially the ones that flip seats,
Yeah.
we all really get it. And they were all women or Black Republicans or combat veterans or immigrants that flipped those seats. And so that diversity really bonds us together. That's the glue that has been holding us together as such a diverse class.
What has been the biggest shock to you? Coming to DC, coming to Congress, what has been the best thing you've seen? And what is the thing that you're like, wow, this is not as good as I thought it?
The best thing I've seen is the talent up here.
Okay.
The staff, they're underpaid and they work hard. And the talent that's up here, everyone is just so smart in identifying people that can bring the office together. I run my office like a business.
Yeah.
We're very efficient. We're very metrics and goal-oriented, metrics-driven. And I want to do it all. I want to do what I said I was going to do. And that takes work and that takes a little bit of time, but we're doing it with the talent that is up here. I'd say the worst thing I've learned here is that Nancy Pelosi has a real chokehold on her members. And it's not like the November election was a
great election for her.
Well, it wasn't a mandate on socialism, right?
Yeah.
So the U.S. Senate is evenly divided 50-50. The House of Representatives, she has a 5-person majority, the slimmest majority she's had in a generation, and she's operating like Green New Deal and AOC's brand of the Hamas squad and socialism is a mandate, and it's not. This is a time to work together where we can, and we're going to disagree on 80% of things, 85% of the things, but on those 10 to 15% of the things, what can we do together? Our nation is really divided, and we need leadership when there is this division. And I've had the opportunity to pass 4 pieces of legislation out of committee by finding sane people to work with on the other side.
So you are finding a little bit of that.
I am finding a little bit of room. I've passed 2 bills out of the House so far, and I've done that by reaching across the aisle. That's what Reagan taught us to do. And I am a product of that era. I remember watching his speeches in the 80s when I was a young child and learning from him and the communication. He was such a great communicator, but he taught us that. And I want to bring that when with the violence that we're seeing, and I've been a victim of political violence like many other members of Congress in recent times and recent months, but we're seeing violence all across the country.
Yeah.
And we need true leadership. And leadership takes toughness. And you've got to be able to make tough decisions.
Takes a Waffle House waitress who went to the Citadel and came to DC as a single mom ready to kick butt.
Yeah.
So I do have a couple things that I do want to talk to you about. I do want to get into legislation and some of the things that you're focused on. But I want to touch on the violence that you've faced personally towards your family, attacks on you, on your home.
Yeah.
So you've been very vocal about your support for the Second Amendment because of that too. So 1, how are you doing? How are your girls doing? And then 2, how much is this rhetoric of defund the police and demeaning and demoralizing the police and degrading our security and our safety in this country affecting not just you personally, but communities across the country? Which is why the Second Amendment is more important.
We're seeing anarchists and Antifa and Black Lives Matter literally burn cities down, taking people's livelihoods away, stealing their businesses by burning them down, and the violence that we've seen in the streets. And I have been very vocal about it. And when I was at the Citadel, I had threats. Running for Congress and being a member of Congress, it's very, very similar to that. But that doesn't mean it's okay. And we want to see and should see people held accountable for their actions.
Yes.
And last year when I was running for Congress, my car was keyed on the day of one of my debates. And unfortunately, the camera in the parking lot where it happened wasn't functioning that day. And it was very frustrating. You see FU written along the side of your car. It was months before I could get it taken off because I was campaigning, and then I had freshman orientation, and then I got sworn in. It took me literally months. And my kids had to ride around in a car with it keyed because I didn't have the time. Mom didn't have the time to get to the shop right away, and it cost a couple $100 to do it.
And then you just had this other incident
I had
with the graffiti.
With the graffiti at my house. And in December of last year, I got my concealed carry permit because of the threats I was receiving. And I didn't feel comfortable. So immediately when I saw some of the rhetoric on social media, I went and got a concealed carry permit. But it wasn't until someone showed up to my house that I decided, okay, I really need to definitely do need to take this seriously. And so now I carry a gun, concealed carry, wherever I go when I'm in South Carolina. It's not okay. About a month ago, I had vandals show up at my home. They spray painted my home, the steps of my home, the sidewalk, the front street where I walk out.
so
You literally walk
sorry.
out of my front door and it's F you, Nancy. And these curse words and Antifa or anarchist Democrats wanted to argue with me whether it was anarchist versus Antifa. I don't know the difference. Somebody tell me the difference.
Well, what
it's
you
the
know
thing.
is this is wrong.
And it's violent.
And
it's wrong and it's violent.
And the thing that I say to people all the time is the left is resorting to this on purpose. They are stoking violence. They don't diffuse it. And why is that? Because if they scare us, they think, oh, we'll silence them, or they won't run, or they'll be quiet.
Right.
And if they shut down your thoughts and they make you not feel comfortable speaking your mind, then your actions follow. And then they have communism and socialism and the things that the Democrats are pushing for.
It's scary.
The thing they
what's
don't know
happening.
is you don't silence Nancy Mace.
No. Oh, hell no. That's like definitely not happening.
But there is an uptick in gun ownership. And I know this too personally. We bought a gun, and I've been taking lessons at a shooting range with a retired cop because it's sad that right now, with the Democrats' rhetoric of defunding the police, that millions and millions of Americans are feeling less and less safe, and we don't have security details like Nancy Pelosi and
No,
and
I don't
many
either.
of these celebrities and others. So good for you.
And there's a rise in anti-Semitism. I talk to Jewish members of my community that are afraid. There's a rise in Asian American violence as well. And one of the most empowering things for me to do as a single mom is the ability to protect myself, protect my kids, and protect my convictions. I mean, that's in my beliefs, because I don't care how many times somebody shows up on my front porch, I'm not going to back down. I'm going to do the job I was elected to do to the best of my ability until you say, no, you're not going to do it anymore. And so until that time happens, I'm going to do the job I was elected to do. Nothing's going to stop me.
And you're so vocal, and I think that's so great. And I think about what your daughters are going through. But I saw the greatest post this weekend where you were hugging one of your daughters, and she said, Mom, thanks for running for Congress, and let me tell you all the reasons why I'm glad you're in Congress. So even despite the negative that they're seeing, the positive is far outweighing that as they're watching you fight for our freedoms and stand up for these things.
It's hard for me as a mom when the vandalism at my house happened. I remember picking my kids up the next day at school because it happened on Memorial Day, and I didn't want to tell the public about it on Memorial Day because I wanted to honor the fallen. But the next day after that, the kids were back in school, and I had talked about it publicly. And when I picked them up, the first question out of their mouths was, are we safe? And that doesn't feel good as a mom. But when one of my kids last weekend said, hey, this is why I'm glad you're in Congress, there's nothing more prideful to think about than my kids get it now. They really, truly get it. And they told me, hey, you love the job and you work hard. You're helping to save our state and our country. They love my chief of staff and her dog. I mean,
they're part
all
of your
the
family. I know my kids know everybody at the RNC. I've been here for 5 years. They know everybody. They've seen things that you don't normally see. They've also had times when mom's not there, and it's tough. So I love that you talked about women supporting women, because we do need to lift each other up. And we have so many great women serving in the Republican Party with great voices. We've doubled our numbers.
This election cycle, we doubled our numbers.
We doubled our numbers, and we're going to continue to do that because our voices matter. I also want to talk about some of the other things that you're doing in Congress, because you have been very impactful in this short period of time that you've been here. One, you're on the Economic Task Force.
Yeah.
How important do you think being a single mother, a working mother, somebody who brings that experience and viewpoint to that committee is?
It's an important voice. I'm looking forward to working with Patrick McHenry and all the other Republicans that are on there. But when you talk to people, Republican or Democrat or independent or libertarian, whatever your political flavor is, jobs in the economy, inflation, all of these issues, which inflation today is taxation. Everyone's paying more for goods and groceries and homes and rent and everything else. It's an extremely important issue, not just to voters, but everyday hardworking Americans. And we've got to be about hardworking Americans if we're going to continue to win in the future.
And single moms.
Yeah.
I mean, single moms right now, when you have your gas go from $33 a gallon to $50 a gallon, and you're living on one budget and you're taking care of your kids.
Yeah.
This is a huge hardship for so many Americans. And you being on a committee like this is critical, this task force.
And the struggle, the juggle too, like with COVID-19, you had millions of women forced to leave the workplace.
It was a she session. Yeah. Women were being forced to leave the work because of the childcare issues.
Because of the childcare.
So thank you for doing that. You've also really been vocal on infrastructure and this infrastructure package that we're talking about every day. You call it the My Way or the Highway bill.
Yeah.
But what would true infrastructure look like for you in South Carolina and your community? And what would you be looking for to work with the Democrats on that front?
It would be your roads and bridges and potholes. Those are not Republican or Democrat things. And I do a lot of selfies when my vehicle's not moving and I'm sitting in traffic.
Safe
like everybody
selfies?
else, safe selfies when I'm sitting in traffic, taking my kids to school or trying to get into the office. And I missed a meeting because I sat in traffic at the top of a bridge for an hour and a half. I have the same problems that every other single working mom has in this country. And, traditional infrastructure, roads, bridges, airports, waterways, 5G, broadband, those issues, getting the internet to rural communities so these moms and dads can get their kids in school and educated because they're virtual school when kids were shut out of school.
Was such a huge problem during the pandemic.
Problem. And especially on single working moms, as you mentioned earlier, enormous. I couldn't stay home. Like I have to work and my kid's dad works. We both work full time. And I felt that pain. But then infrastructure is a place where I really felt like, hey, this is a nonpartisan committee. We can work together. We can find ways to work together. But when Pelosi took over the committee, bipartisanship went out the door. And what they're doing right now, defining human infrastructure as traditional infrastructure. And trust me, I want my kids' school lunches to be healthier too. I want them greener. I love to talk about climate and the environment and flooding and sea level rise. Those are all very much real issues. But the Green New Deal wasn't a mandate in November. It shouldn't be part of an infrastructure bill. And they want to pay for art and sculptures.
Don't you think that's what people don't like about Congress too, though? It's why can't it just be a clean bill? Why can't it just be about what everybody knows is infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, things that we know are crumbling and falling apart across this country? Why can't it just be on that? But the Democrats are saying, oh no, let's throw this in. Let's throw voting rights in. Let's throw this in. And I hope the American people pay attention because they'll give it a catchy name.
Yeah.
And they'll say it's infrastructure.
Yeah.
But if you look under the hood, there's so many things in there that have nothing to do with infrastructure. And I'm glad you're pushing back on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's voter oppression, not voting rights either. I would redefine it. They want to pull on the emotional heartstrings, and they're really good at that. One of the things that Republicans could do better was talking about why we take some of the positions that we take. We're not cold-blooded, cold-hearted.
Exactly.
I do live in spreadsheets and sometimes in numbers, but we have feelings too, and articulating and talking about what this means to us personally or to a member in the community, what this kind of economic policy, why inflation is so bad, why spending, and we're talking about $65 trillion of spending in the next decade.
Which is hard to imagine.
$65 trillion.
But when you keep doing that, you're putting debts on your children. It's like saying to your child, you're going to come out of college and you're going to have a credit card with $100,000 in debt from the federal government that you're going to be paying off for the rest of your life. You don't even know that yet.
No, you don't.
And that's so crazy.
It's crazy, and you just add another zero to it.
Add another zero.
And
then more zeros if we keep going.
At some point, you don't think it's real. It's like fake money.
Hard to
it's not real money. It's just imaginary money.
But
and
we are
free.
seeing it now because we are seeing our groceries are costing more, our goods are costing more, our supply chain's disrupted. This is all happening because of Democrat policies. So when you sit at home and you think, oh, government doesn't matter and policy doesn't matter, it does. It has a direct impact on your life. And I think a lot of people don't see that. And I think you being a single mom makes a difference. You talked about environment. We know they want to pass the Green New Deal, regulate everything in our lives. But you're part of the Climate Caucus.
Yeah.
Tell me what that means as a Republican and how we push back on Democrats, especially with younger voters who do want to see Republicans talk about the environment and conservation.
Well, environment is an issue that young Republicans really care about and they vote on. And it's remarkable the number of young Republicans that I hear from when I do a piece of legislation or an issue related to the environment. So we started, about 50 of us started this Conservative Climate Caucus to talk about the environment and how we can improve it using free market ideology. Well, what does that mean? Everyone, you say these great little buzzwords, but what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
And, when you talk about it, for me personally, when you see businesses and the innovation, so take Operation Warp Speed, for example, where you had a vaccination go from idea to market in 10 months versus 10 years because government bureaucracy got out of the way. The FDA was able to run more like a business and run more efficiently and faster. The same thing can be said on environmental policy. A lot of times we put regulations in place that are meant to do well, but they actually end up doing more harm. And when private industry has the money and the resources, meaning they're not overtaxed or overburdened by regulatory policy, they then have the funding and the resources to innovate and invest in research and development and develop technologies that are more environmentally friendly. And one of the things I've learned up here is that a lot of industry, they're already making it work. They're making it happen. And there's got to be an intersection where industry and the environment work together. And you don't have these one-sided mandates from the far left driving the conversation. Industry's doing it now.
Well,
We
and
got to
that's
work
what
with them.
the regulation part of it is so key because a lot of times in the name of doing good, we add more and more cumbersome regulation, which actually undermines our ability to innovate in these spaces. So
Right.
we always say, we want clean air. Well, guess what? Our air is cleaner than it was 4 years
it's
ago.
ever been.
Our water is cleaner. People don't realize that those things are happening. But why should we hamstring our innovators and our country who's trying to lead on this and not hold accountable countries like China and India that are polluting and doing things that affect the global environment? And we're going to hamstring Americans and our economy. And that's part of the whole
They don't want to have a
discussion
conversation
that they won't have.
about it, like the regulatory policy in New York. They import their oil and gas from Russia. Why are we giving Russia a leg up? We have it right here.
And it's
within our
cleaner.
and it's cleaner and it's better. And they're doing more to protect our environment today than they were a decade ago. And the emissions are far down, yet we're producing, double what we were a decade
I think
ago.
what this caucus does is really impactful. And I think it's really important as you go forward that we're messaging to voters that Republicans care about this issue too. We're just going to do it in a way that actually works.
Yeah, common sense.
Common
Use a little
sense.
common sense goes a long way.
Doesn't put our country behind, that we're always putting America first and leading on these issues.
Yeah.
I have one final question to ask you, which I know everybody's going to want to know.
Okay.
And it's going to go back to your Waffle House days.
Oh.
Okay, how do you order your hash browns? Give me what's your favorite Waffle House dish? I know there's like so many ways that you can order that are Waffle House specific.
I do 2 eggs over medium with my hash browns smothered, sometimes covered. It depends if I'm doing dairy
So
or
what's
not.
the difference between smothered and covered?
Smothered would be like spread out. Covered would be cheese. But I usually dice, capped, and peppered, which would be mushrooms, tomatoes, and jalapeno peppers. The jalapenos are really, really hot. So if you like spicy, do the peppered. That's how I like them. And I don't usually do the toast. But the one thing you have to get at Waffle House, if you like coffee, you have to get a fresh brewed cup of coffee.
Okay.
It is the best cup of coffee $1.80 can buy. I promise you. Like, you don't need creamer, you don't need sugar, you don't need honey, you don't need anything in it. Just drink it as is, and it is a wonderful cup of coffee. And now they have K-Cups for your Keurig that are from Waffle House, and I have a stack of those at
Do
home.
they ever come back and thank you for, you're always touting Waffle House.
I did an interview in the parking lot. I was on Fox Business or Fox News. I think it was last Friday, and we had traffic. So infrastructure issues, stuck in traffic. So I wasn't able to get back to a studio, but I did it literally in the parking lot of a Waffle House.
That's so funny.
So, I'm like literally a walking advertisement, but I love the place. And for me, campaigning, it was a great place to feed the volunteers and to have meetings or meetups before we're going to go knock doors or going to a campaign event. We always met at a Waffle House in the district, and we still do today.
I can't think of a better place to meet. I got to be honest. So
Yeah.
Waffle House, Citadel, single mom, Congress. You are a trailblazer. Thank you
you.
so much for all that you do for our party. And thanks for being on Real America.
And thank you for all you do for us and our party as well. You have shown great leadership during very challenging times. So
Thanks,
thank you.
Nancy. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm Ronna McDaniel, and this is what Republicans stand for. Join us next time on Real America.